For 3 years, I played a character on a popular television show, but you never actually saw my face. I was the robot. The show, Lost in Space. I have many fond recollections of that period of time in my life, and I'd like to share them with you. These are my robot memories. Have you ever wondered how a robot goes to work at a studio? Well, here's how I think it might be like.
Morning, Mr. Robot.
Cut! Bob, you can get out of the suit.
Take care of my pal, will you? Thank you. Thank you very, very much, and welcome to Robot Memories. On this video show, I plan to show and tell you as much as I possibly can about our pal, the Robinson Robot. And Ken Murray from Ken Murray's Blackouts always carried a movie camera wherever he went, and so did I. In fact, you will see home movies that I took on the Lost in Space set. You will see demonstrations and explanations about our pal, the robot. And you will see merchandising from the Lost in Space show, as well as stills from before, during, and afterwards. We will also cut away to the science fiction convention and get questions from them, as well as our studio audience. But in the meantime, I want you to sit back, relax, enjoy yourself, and have fun with me while we go down memory lane with Robot Memories. I bet you're wondering what kind of a guy it takes to play a robot. Well, you have to understand my background, folks. I come from Hellzapoppin'. That's Olsen and Johnson. Olsen and Johnson, we're a vaudevillian team that went back to 1914. Well, I didn't join them then, but later on, when I was born, I joined Olsen and Johnson. Chick Johnson was my grandfather of the comedy team of Olsen and Johnson. And they put all their family in, just like the George M. Cohens and, Sammy Davis Jr.'s and everybody else. Well, my father was Marty May, Broadway star. My mother, June Johnson May. She was in pictures at RKO and Republic, and she became the aunt in Olsen and Johnson. Well, not too many years later, I was born. I opened up in a show called Sons of Fun in 1941 with Olsen and Johnson. I always said that the 46th Street Theater was my cradle and the Winter Garden Theater my playpen. Well, we went on, I played different parts. I went through trapdoors, I played a penguin, I played a snowman. You wonder now why I played the robot in Lost in Space? It all falls together, believe me it does. But when I was 13 years old, I'll never forget it, I started directing Olsen and Johnson shows, and by the time I was 16, I was their director as well as their producer, and I was still acting in the shows. But you have to understand about theatrical families. Theatrical families teach you both behind the curtain as well as in front of the curtain. So we pick up things everywhere we go, and I used to pick everybody's brains as much as I could. Well, it went on and went on just like that for years. Well, we're out here in 1960, and we're preparing a show to go into Las Vegas and around the country And I needed to have this girl singer who was also an actress. So when I heard about different people and what have you, and I went out to see this one young lady sing and dance and everything, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And that's where I met my wife, Judy May. She was known as Judy Wells in those days. She auditioned for us. I told her to come down and start rehearsing. She worked with us in nightclubs. We got married in 1961. Well, that was the luckiest day of my life because she's my best friend. And we have fun together. And she has made me really what I am today. An ex-robot, a guy that appreciates what he's doing. Well, we went and we worked Las Vegas together. We worked all over the country in singing and dancing. And we had a lot of fun. Well, from there, we came back in 1962. I couldn't get arrested. I really couldn't get arrested in this town because they didn't want to know of New York actors. They said, well, you know, motion pictures is totally different. Well, there's a real nice story that I have to tell, and it's something that I'm very proud to tell. I went on an interview for a Jerry Lewis picture, and I wasn't picked. And I was kind of upset about it, so I stayed off the sound stage and waited for him, and Jerry came off, and he had a whole bunch of people with him. And I said, Jerry Lewis, you're a friend of the family's. And he said, who's your family? And I told him. And he says, I got a great part for you. It's for a little guy. He says, how tall are you? I said, 5'7". He says, no, you don't understand. It's for a little guy. He says, how tall are you? I said, 5'1". He says, good, you're hired. He says, Hal. And that's when I met Hal Bell, my buddy, my best friend, in fact. He's like my big brother. And Hal came over, and Hal took me over, and we took care of the contracts and everything, and that was for a picture called Nutty Professor. And I was on there for 8 weeks, and I learned more about motion pictures in those 8 weeks from Jerry Lewis than I've learned in years from anybody else. In fact, I've done 9 Jerry Lewis films, and I'm very proud of it. Oh, well, after Jerry, I started getting some breaks. I started doing some television series. I did a series. For all you Star Trek fans, I did a series for Star Trek's producer, Gene Roddenberry. It was the Lieutenant series out at MGM. And that was starring Gary Lockwood. I had a lot of fun in that. I played a Marine, had my Marine Corps haircut, and then at the same time I was doing Mr. Novak, which was about a high school, and I was playing a part of one of the high school kids, as well as I was the stunt coordinator on the show. And then I did Dr. Kildare, where I was a doctor. And that was quite interesting because I don't know how to give a person a shot or tell them to take an aspirin and call me tomorrow. But anyway,
in Ensign Pulver, I had the part of the radio operator. Also, I did the stunts and eventually worked at all of the studios.
Over at Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, and what have you. But I went out on an interview for a show. It was a motion picture. It was called Stagecoach. And a very dear friend of mine that I knew from New York, Red Buttons, who I had stunt doubled once before in a picture called Harlow. Well, Red was going to be doing Stagecoach, and the director was Gordon Douglas. And I was sitting there on the soundstage having a nice visit with them, and we were talking over things that could be done and how we were going to do it and everything else. And there was a telephone call that came through for me. And I picked up the phone, and it was a casting director from 20th. And he said, Bob, he said, would you be interested in a television series? And I said, well, yeah, but I'm here on the set of Stagecoach, and we're talking over a deal. He says, you haven't signed yet? And I said, no. He said, well, please come up to Irwin Allen's office because there's a possible television show for you. Well, I turned around to Red Buttons, and I said, Red, what do I do? Should I go on this television series or what? He says, Bob, he says, this picture's only going to last a few weeks. Irwin Allen has successful shows. Go ahead, go up there and take it. And he says, I don't want to see you again. Well, I went up to Irwin's office, and Irwin greeted me very nice. And he said, Bob, didn't you work for me once before? And I said, yes, sir, I did. I was on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. He says, I thought so. He said, look, I have a television series, he said, that we're going to be doing called Lost in Space. There's a part of a robot. I don't know what we're going to do with the part, but would you like to do it? And I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do it. After doing a penguin and a snowman, why not play a robot? Well, he said there was only one catch. The robot costume was already almost completed, and I had to fit into it. So he sent me down to the prop department, and I met the designer down there.
Bob Kinoshita. He had begun the design months before with this scarecrow-like robot. In this later sketch, the lowrider robot is actually supposed to gain height by elongating his legs. I can't imagine how I would manage this. As things began to take more familiar shape, notice how the collar is made. Very sharp angles, and later on takes on a rounder form you're used to seeing. Finally, the robot looks as we all know him from the series. Bob Kinoshita worked with the Fox Construction Department to make the robot out of fiberglass and rubber. Bob's talent with plastic resulted in the bubble that acts as the robot's head. In this other Kinoshita sketch, you'll see that Bob all along knew where a person is supposed to go inside the costume. That person? Moi.
Bob put me in the costume, and it was a little smaller than I, but remembering what I went through with Jerry Lewis on Nutty Professor and saying I was 5'7" and he wanted it small to be 5'1", I got into that costume because here is a nice television series. And I got into it, and I'm fooling around with it and trying to get used to it. And Irwin comes down to the prop department. He says to Bob, he says, how's he doing? Well, Bob was one heck of a nice guy and a great designer, because you have to understand, Bob was the one who designed Robbie the robot for Forbidden Planet over at MGM many years before. So Bob knew his stuff, and he knew that actors really needed jobs and what have you, because there's 50 million actors for one job. And he knew that I wanted this real bad because I was squeezing into this costume. Anyway, he said, oh, Irwin, he's doing just fine. It'll fit him just great. And Irwin says, good, Bob, come on up to the office when you get through here, and we'll take care of everything. Welcome to Lost in Space. Well, that was a thrill. I didn't know what a robot's going to do at that point. He didn't either. Went up to his office. He welcomed me very graciously. And then I went over to casting, and we signed contracts. Then it came to the first day on the set. Well, here I'm on the set with people like June Lockhart and Guy Williams, Mark Goddard, and Angela Cartwright, Billy Mooney, Marta Kristen, people who have been around the motion picture industry.
Before Lost in Space, Guy Williams became famous as Don Diego, whose alter ego was the Spanish fox Zorro. Guy also starred in several feature films and was frequently a guest star on shows like Bonanza. June Lockhart was already known as a great TV mom. Before she became Maureen Robinson, in the 1950s, June was in the popular series Lassie. June did guest shots on several TV shows, Voyage, Bewitched, Red Skelton, and let me tell you, June is the cast den mother. She's kept us together all these years. Mark Goddard was our Major Don West. Mark was also a very good actor, appearing in TV series like The Detectives and Johnny Ringo, and he was a solid addition to Lost in Space. I don't believe Mark has ever been given the credit that he rightfully deserves as an actor, and he was very important in helping establish Smith's cowardly ways. Billy Mooney was already one of the busiest child actors when we were lucky enough to get him for Lost in Space. He could charm you in a movie like Wizard of Baghdad, then scare the pants off you in The Twilight Zone. Billy was also in a classic Alfred Hitchcock show, playing a boy who gets a hold of a loaded gun. In one of those fun kind of show business happenings, Marta Kristen was also in the same episode. Speaking of Marta, who could have been more beautiful for Judy Robinson than Marta Kristen? Marta had appeared in several movies, including Beach Blanket Bingo, and she did guest shots in series like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Alfred Hitchcock and My Three Sons. By the time Marta joined our show, Marta was a pro and a total joy to work with. Angela Cartwright, our Penny Robinson. Angela spent many years growing up with Danny Thomas on Make Room for Daddy. And from there, she segued right into the 1960s biggest musical, The Sound of Music. Angela grew from an attractive little girl to a beautiful young woman. She has a wonderful family, and she's constantly doing commercials. Then we come to Mr. Irwin Allen. Well, Irwin's a genius. And I don't say that because I work for the man, but you gotta look at his background as a writer, producer, director. And you gotta see the things he's done and the way he gets it done. And he puts his heart and soul into every project. And he treated me superbly. I had fun. I could always rely on Mr. Allen. I really could. Last, but certainly not least, Jonathan Harris. The Dr. Smith. Jonathan took years of comedy and drama training and combined them into a classic character, Zachary Smith, Dr. Zachary Smith. Jonathan and I became the Olsen and Johnson, or the Laurel and Hardy of space. And it took several episodes for the chemistry to work, but after that, wow, did we pull it together. You have to understand, Jonathan had that rare opportunity that many actors would love to have, and that is study acting in Europe. Jonathan appeared in many feature films and television series before Lost in Space, shows like Bonanza, Bewitched, and Zorro, and he co-starred in the TV's The Third Man and The Bill Dana Show. Jonathan is still busy doing more voiceovers and conventions than the rest of us combined. You know, Jonathan Harris and myself were never in the pilot. Smith and the Robot were added afterwards. That was the interesting part, because CBS and Irwin Allen decided that Smith and the Robot had to be added to give it that certain chemistry, which eventually it worked out to be. First question. What's the question?
Bob, when you were inside the robot and the chest lit up,
Yeah?
how did you do that? How did you accomplish that?
Oh, you want secrets now. All right. We said we'd tell all, and I will. The light in the first year was on a telegraph key. And I had to, every time I talked, the light had to light up with every syllable of every word. But on this telegraph key, I had to hit it with my head. And you know, that gets to be something. So I spoke to the prop guys, and after that first year, they put a button on my claw. And it was the size of a button that you would have to signal any particular thing. Well, that worked, but it really wasn't the ideal thing. And Johnny Borghese and the fellas in the crew all designed an idea to put it was the size of a matchstick, and they inserted it on the grip of the claw that I gripped inside, so that every time that I would talk, I would have to touch with my finger the button to synchronize the syllable of the words with the light. It was kind of confusing at times. And next question.
Yes, can you tell me about Dick Tufeld, please?
Oh, Dick Tufeld? Well, Dick Tufeld happens to be one of the best announcers in our business. Dick Tufeld was the announcer for Red Skelton. And I had the privilege of having him dub my voice. You know, at first when they dubbed my voice, actor's pride got involved, and I was feeling very bad and low. And then I realized that my voice would have to be dubbed if it went to Japan, which it did, or any other country, because I certainly don't speak German or Japanese or French, and our series was very big over in Europe. So I had to look at it as, okay, that's dubbing, and that's the way it has to be. And luckily, I had one of the best announcers in our business that would come in and take 3 different shows all at one time and dub them. However, he did not dub my laugh or the singing. Not that I'm Caruso or anything like that, but the sound that I had at that point worked for the robot.
Now let's go back in time to 1965 The place, 20th Century Fox. This is the entrance to my dressing room, a small trailer located outside Stage 5. As you can see, it's Christmas in my dressing room, and my wife, Judy, put up all those lights for me. I liked it so much, I left them up all year round. This is me wearing that special makeup that hides my face behind the robot's collar. The makeup was put on by our wonderful makeup artist, Bob Marks. On the stage, I had a chair just like everyone else. The prop men put my name on it, and I couldn't resist trying a little Lost in Space special effects magic. You know, someone appears or disappears. There I am, still wearing the makeup. Oh, by the way, I get a uniform to wear in the second season, just like the on-camera cast. Oops, there I go.
You see, that was in Super 8 without the technology, of course, of having to do things in a proper manner. Doing pop-ins, pop-outs, dissolves, things of that nature. What we can do it blue screen, we can do it with an explosion, we can do it strictly with editing. Now, I'm gonna show you how we do this. I'm gonna sit in this chair, and I'm gonna pop myself out. It's very, very simple. All we do is say cut, and we lock off the camera. I get out. Watch. See how easy it is? When you have the technology to be able to do things, we can do them with ease.
That's our planet set. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. There's Albert Salmi's spaceship from the show that we were shooting. I showed this film to my wife and I told her, we're moving there. Now here's Guy Williams clowning around on the set of The Sky Pirate. Mark Goddard and Guy, oh, they had a nice friendly relationship. And you could see this from the way they were kidding around. How about those first season costumes? Never seen in color on movie film before. Too bad. Our costume man, Paul Zastunovich, I call him Paul Z. He did a great job on them. Now, Albert's spaceship is parked on our Alien World stage, which was our other sound stage away from the Jupiter 2 stage. This is where we'd shoot any planet set that would change from one episode to the next. And it was always fun to see what the crew would scare up for the next week's alien planet, and what monsters Paul Z would drop on us that week. Albert did a great job playing the Sky Pirate on 2 episodes. He worked a lot for Irwin. Now let's go back to the future.
There's some funny things that happen on Lost in Space that I've got to bring to your attention. Falling down in the robot. Everybody wanted to know, did I fall? Did I have any accidents? Well, there was one time when we were going up into the Jupiter 2, and everybody was on the ramp. Everybody was on the ramp, and I said to Jerry Duran, the director, I said, gee, Jerry, you know, we got to do this in the Bermudas. I'm a little worried about it. He says, no, the full outfit will be fine. Well, we did the scene. It was a big master shot. I come rolling in on the wires, and somebody stepped on it. Well, I went up in the air, and I did a 360-degree flip. And as I now jokingly say, in Olympic scoring, that was a 10, because I never saw a thing go up so high in my life. Next thing I remember is I'm on the ground, the robot's apart, and I'm laying in June Lockhart's arms. And you got to understand something. My face wasn't being seen, so I was concerned about my job. So the first question out of my mouth was not how am I or anything like that. I said, how's the robot? Well, everybody was a little disgusted with me because they were more concerned with me at that point. But Johnny Borghese and Paul Skelton and Bill Myatt, good crew guys, great prop men. They put the robot together within about 15, 20 minutes, and I was able to continue on. Irwin was down on the set. He had everybody there. He showed compassion. He showed a lot of heart, and he was concerned about me. He wanted to know if I wanted to just go home, and I said, no, we've got a job to do, let's do it. Then there was the time when Robbie the robot was brought on the set. And, well, kiddingly, I used to say, they let me have the fight scene with Robbie the first day so I would have confidence to go on for the rest of the week. To tell you this story, I have to tell you first that I was on a week-to-week contract at this point, and everybody else was on series contracts. All of a sudden, Batman and Robin at 20th Century Fox. For some reason, and I won't go into it, but they wanted to know, the producers of Batman and Robin, if I would be interested in playing the part of Robin. And I said, well, you know, I'm doing Lost in Space, and I was always raised with loyalty, and you start a job, you finish a job, but if Mr. Allen doesn't want to sign my contract, then I'd be honored to play the part of Robin. And about 2 days later, I was signed to a series contract, so I never got Batman and Robin. That's the fun part about this business. You never know what's going to come. Somebody doesn't know we're shooting in here. Excuse me 1 second, would you, folks? I'm sorry, we're shooting a video in here.
May I take your picture?
Well, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Never know, when you were born to Olsen and Johnson and Hell's a Poppin' and you played a robot on Lost in Space, anything can happen and probably usually will.
In 1966, I was sent over to the Time Tunnel to play Adolf Hitler. The part was mostly cut out. I don't think I look any more like Hitler than any of you folks. But I did have fun in the photo session with Lee Merriweather. As you can see, I got kind of friendly with her, and she got kind of friendly with me. Maybe I should dress up more often. I have to show you a picture of one of our regular directors, Sobey Martin. It's true, he used to say, "Choot it, choot it."
Well, I promised you something, and I haven't forgotten. I promised to show you the robot suit. So come on with me a minute. We're gonna go over here and see my buddy. Lost in Space robot. This is the bottom section of the robot. These tracks down here, they actually worked. They moved. When the cables would pull this outfit, these tracks would actually move, giving it the appearance that it was actually moving by itself. There was a little door here that we used for soil samples in the actual robot that we used on the set. Now, we had the Bermudas, and the Bermudas were carried, as I said before, on a parachute harness. That top section weighed 250 pounds. The Bermudas were cut off right here.
Let's go back in time again and take a look at something never seen before. Actual Super 8 footage of me getting into the costume. There's Bob Marks's makeup again. The guy on the left helping me is Paul Skelton. That's Red Skelton's brother. It took at least 2 people to get me into that costume. You'll notice this footage, which was shot during the episode Sky Pirate, shows the robot having absolutely no color. And the claws were painted red in the second season. And that's this third set, the bubble, which is being plugged in. Paul Skelton plugs it in, they lock it on me, they turn it, and it's completely sealed. Notice the covering over the neon lights? That's to protect him so nothing can happen. And there's Paul hitting the outside switch to activate the robot. I'm alive and well. They're checking me out. What they're pointing at is the little lights. I'm telling them that's enough. That's enough. Let's not overdo it. Folks, this is unusual film, so I'm going to do exactly what the NFL does and give you instant replay. Here we go. There I am getting into that robot. You notice the makeup. I had to stretch my arms so high because I was bigger than the robot, as we talked about before. Now the guys are putting it in. There's a little lock screw down below. You can see the prop man trying to find it. They lock it so that when I turn, it can't come unlocked. If you look real careful, you'll see the headpiece that fits on top of my head, so that when I move, the bubble will go up and down or turn each way. Paul Skelton is plugging in the top section so that the electrical system goes down to the motorcycle batteries in the bodice of the robot. In the first few episodes, really had to be careful because they were running high voltage cables up the back side of the robot, and I got hit one time, and it really hurt.
Back in the All Together again. Wasn't that fun? 25 years ago. Thank gosh I had Super 8 movie film to bring it to you. That's fun. This is something that Jonathan Harris, Dr. Smith, always had to fool with. The power pack. Let me show it to you. He would pull it out, stop me, I'd go limp. Then he'd put it back in. And we'd have more doggone fun with this power pack because it actually did work. Because all the circuits were put together to make that actually work, along with a switch down in here.
Look inside the costume. You'll see I really didn't have much room to dance. Imagine spending hours inside this every day.
This is where I would look out. I told you about this earlier, that I could see very easily, and we will show you my point of view of how I looked out of here.
Now you're seeing exactly what I was seeing looking out of the robot. Let me show you what I actually saw when I looked out of the robot. 8 hours a day, day after day. Dr. Smith.
These buttons all worked here. Tape would come out of here. This is the microphone that they used to pull out to program the robot. This is the speaking box. This is where I would speak. This is where all the lights would come on, the red lights. The claws would open up. We could play chess with them. They were that easy to work with that I could pick up a dime with them. These are the ears, and they used to work. And so did the little lights up here that were bouncing up and down. However, we had to cut those out because the motors that would drive those made too much noise that we couldn't have a clean track for sound. So they had to cut those out, unfortunately. This would all swivel around because there was ball bearings on this bottom section with ball bearings on the bodice so that the robot could swing, as I explained before. The arms would lock into place because there was a locking device right up here so I could bring them in and slide them and lock them. The robot also had inside braces. They were metal braces that when they were taken out, the robot then could lean, could dump over, as when the robot would be shot by an alien and it would, and that's the way it would do it. With those braces still in, we couldn't. We had to stay upright. This pedestal is very strong, and it would hold a grown man, as it did with Dr. Smith. You know, the original robot was changed for that Hanna-Barbera TV show called Mystery Island. It doesn't look like our robot. But thanks to Greg Jean, who restored our robot here, I'm very pleased about this, Greg, and I know our fans are too. A lot of our cast members and people all went and signed it. I hope you can see this. Here's Dick Tufeld, Billy Mooney, Bill Abbott. Oh my golly, there's so many. I hope you allow me the privilege of signing this to you too, Greg. I know our fans would appreciate it. I know I do. Here we go. Love and luck. Bob May, the robot. Greg Jean, thank you very much for bringing my memories back to me and restoring this wonderful robot. You know, this robot was a very physical type of part. It would swivel, it had arm movements, it had to use your head, you had to be forceful with this thing. Now, there's a lot of videos around for exercise. I can think of many, many people who have done exercise videos. Well, to get in shape to play a part of a robot, maybe there should have been a video, because when you think about it, a robot's got to be able to move his arms and roll like this because of warning, warning, danger, danger. All those things take exercise to the arm. Now, I'm having fun with you. Please have fun with me. There's other exercises that you must learn. You've got to learn how to do this. You've got to be able to do this all the time. You You've got to be able to stretch your neck up and bring it back down. You've got to be able to, when you're going to talk as a robot, learn the synchronization of hand and mouth. For instance, I took my hand right here and I had to practice how to talk like this. So I had to exercise my thumb. Then the biggest thing of all was I had to learn how to twist. So I studied Chubby Checker's records of Twist Again like we did last summer, and we just twisted away, and we twisted away. I lost 15 pounds in the first week, folks. Then I had to learn that I'm inside of my buddy the robot here, and what happens then? I have to be encased. So I spent 2 weeks in a closet, had no problems. I'm fine then. Come on with me, I gotta show you some of the other things over here. I promised to show you some of the merchandising that was on Lost in Space. Well, being the robot, I'm only going to show you robot things. This was the robot that Remco brought out to us. It was, in fact, my mother bought one of these robots when they first came out. This is the original box, and my dad took a photo of this robot toy and had a special version made up for me. How about that? It will light up and move. It's quite interesting. We have here one of the robots that Irwin Allen used when we had all the little teeny robots that tied up Dr. Smith and I was the king. Well, this is one of the little robots here. And the robot that Aurora Plastics made for us. And isn't this unique how it is? This one here, the Japanese made. And I'm really thrilled about this because the Japanese have been big fans of ours, and we're just thrilled. This one here, this lights up, and it works. Let me just turn it on for you here and watch it, because in the first episode of Lost in Space, I wasn't being pulled with cables. I had to walk it, and the Japanese saw this, and this is what happened. Look at this. Look at these. Legs go. Well, they saw me in the first episode destroy this spaceship, the Jupiter 2, and they came up with it, and it's quite interesting. This was one of the robots that the Japanese put out, the little teeny robots, and they actually worked because you had to wind them up and then they would roll, and this was quite nice. This one right here was sent to me from our friends in Australia and New Zealand. It has a little koala bear attached to it, so the robot carried more than just the blimp and also Will Robinson. Here was one that, oh golly, this is a real prized possession because this one works, the lights work on it and everything else, and we'll have to show you how this moves and lights up, but this took hours and hours and hours to do. Jupiter 2, the only thing that I'm going to show you that isn't robot, and that's because it was sent to me by one of our fans. Over here is a pin. This was from Australia. This one right here was a little teeny robot. It's the smallest robot that was ever made, and that was made by a fan and sent to me. And of course, we've got warning, warning, the Lost in Space robot pin. Here we have Robbie the robot. Robbie, I'd like to call him the grandfather of the robots because the same designer that designed our robot designed Robbie way, way back. And I want to tell you, it was way back because it's older than I am, and a famous actor was in this robot. His name was Frankie Darro, to be exact. He fell over in the robot too. So accidents always happen. But it was a clever design, and through that design came our robot. Later on, the Japanese said, well, we're going to make another robot, and we're going to make it with the Japanese words in it, and also they put my voice in it. And it does speak. Let me turn it on for you a second. Does not compute, he said. Well, that'll give you a little idea of what we went through with all the little robots, from the big ones that talk to the little teeny ones. But every one was made with a lot of love and affection and a lot of workmanship. There was something else I want to share with you. It's what Angela Cartwright's father made for all of us. Isn't this unique? Made out of plaster, three-dimensional, from a 35mm still picture. Now it's time to go live to Bruce Schwartz's Los Angeles Science Fiction Convention. We've got a camera down there, and there we're waiting to make contact with all the folks to have them ask questions about the robot. Let's have the first question. Hello there.
Bob, I was wondering how you moved your hands in the costume, because when it looked like you were in, or when you were in the costume, it seemed that your hands couldn't extend out far enough from where it looked like you were, if you were in the costume. And like, was there a grip to hold on to close the claw and stuff like that?
That's true. My arms went out, and they went out as far as I could possibly put them out. And they had hand grips that we would squeeze to make the claws close, and then I would release the grip to open them up. Does that help you out, Eric?
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Bob, is it true that you were left in the costume and everybody went to lunch?
Oh, it's very true. It is very true, Keith. I got to tell you how that happened. Mark Goddard and Billy Mooney pulled that prank on me. See, the robot costume, when it was in place, was locked, and there was an actual screw that was put in, so it couldn't unlock by itself. And it took 3 prop men to get me out. They locked me in during lunch, laughed and went to lunch, and I'm stuck in there. So I lit up a cigarette, and I relaxed, and I was smoking in there, and Irwin Allen came on the set, and he saw the smoke coming out of the top of the robot, ran for a fire extinguisher, thinking the robot was on fire, and I saw him coming, and I said, "No, no, please, Mr. Allen, it's only me. I'm smoking a cigarette." Well, that was my downfall, because every time that smoke had to come out of the robot, they would hand me this cigar to make sure there was enough smoke coming out, and a couple of times I almost choked to death, and probably I should have quit smoking at that point. Next question.
Bob, why do you think the robot is such a popular character?
A popular character? Thank you very much. That's very, very nice. I appreciate that. It's only popular because we gave the audience what they wanted to see. And they wanted to see some fun with Smith and the robot, and a lot of love and affection to the rest of the family. Next question.
Okay, I'm one of your British fans.
Hello, British fan.
Over on holiday.
Yes, Donald.
Was it dangerous at all, being all these explosions and things?
No, no, David, it wasn't dangerous, because we had a special effects man named Stu Moody who was superb. And as long as Stu Moody was setting it up, the danger ceased to be there. Okay?
Bob, how you doing?
Oh, fine.
The question I have for you is, how did you get the robot to move on those little bitty tracks, you know, that they have? And how did you get it through the sand?
Let me say that the robot was pulled with some cables when it was in the full outfit. I was in Bermuda shorts, which I nicknamed, and I used to walk it. Walking it was the toughest part, and trying to act and react with that kind of weight on it was kind of difficult. There's a couple of episodes that you'll see where you can actually see my legs. Don't tell anybody I told you, though.
How tall was that robot?
Robot was approximately, I would say, there's been different quotes on this, but I would say it's about 7 foot tall, and I'm a little guy. But when you stand inside of it to where they had the headpiece, I was able to raise and lower the bubble because of it.
Bob, how did you feel playing a girl robot in one of the episodes?
Oh, come on. Tony Curtis did that in Some Like It Hot. A robot can do it. We had fun. We had fun.
Bob, I'd like to know what the face of the robot is, whether it's the head or whether it's the faceplate with the 2 eyes and the little buttons.
No, the face of the robot really is the bubble. That's the head. And the little eyes are inside there. The faceplate, what we call the faceplate, is where I talked. That was where the lights lit up with every syllable of every word that I said. But when the head went up, that was the head of the robot, and the eyes would look. Bill, I have a question for you. What did you think the face was?
I think it was the bubble. There seemed to be two eyes inside the bubble, and that's where the robot saw out of. And also, Dr. Smith always looked up to the bubble whenever he said, "You bubble-headed booby."
That's all the time we have now. I'd like to thank Bruce Schwartz for letting us shoot during his convention, held every month in Los Angeles. Well, the end came prematurely for Lost in Space in 1968, and it was time to move on to other things. Strangely enough, I marked the first year of the show with the birth of my son, Marty. Marty is now 24 years old, a semi-pro football running back. After the show was canceled, my wife and I were blessed with another baby. It was a girl named Deborah. Deborah is following in my footsteps, singing, dancing, acting, a fourth generation. In 1971, I met a man called Bob Peoples. And Bob and I formed a nightclub act called Peoples in May. And we've been together for 22 years, playing Las Vegas, Reno, Tahoe, every place we could play. Bringing on the same kind of comedy that Olsen and Johnson would be giving, or Abbott and Costello, or Martin and Lewis, because we would sing as well. And I was involved with Jerry Lewis, as I said before, for 9 motion pictures, finishing with Hardly Working. Hardly Working, which was done in Florida, out of Fort Lauderdale. Anyway, Jerry Lewis, as you know, is involved with muscular dystrophy. Well, I asked 20th Century Fox if they could possibly loan the robot's outfit for the muscular dystrophy telethon. And 20th Century Fox didn't fail. They sent 2 prop men to Las Vegas with the entire robot, and we used that robot on the muscular dystrophy JC convention as well as the telethon. And believe me, it helped a lot of wonderful children. I'm also involved with Special Olympics for the Down syndrome kids. That's where I met Nedra Volz, the little actress from Different Strokes, who is a darling and a very dear friend of mine. She's with me everywhere I go, in fact. You know, Lost in Space has so many wonderful fans all over this world. In Australia, to give you an example, they are celebrating 22 years of Lost in Space on primetime television. Would you believe that? 22 years? And here in the United States, we're still showing Lost in Space daily. Yes, we have some wonderful, wonderful fans. And I would like to thank all our wonderful, wonderful fans all over this world, no matter where you are. And the only way I can actually thank you properly is to thank you with a toast. A toast that my grandfather, Chick Johnson, of the comedy team of Olsen and Johnson, presented all of their audiences with for many, many years. May you live as long as you want to, and laugh as long as you live. Thank you. Well, folks, that's why he's the star. That does compute.